Hello and welcome to another Ramblogue. I'm stepping back into the world of Infinity Train and the madness that lies within. The question I'm hoping to answer in this video is, could Book 5 exist? And you're thinking, well, what? Sorry, Dan, what? Book 4 just got announced. What are you talking about Book 5 for? Well, that's exactly why I've been thinking about it. So, obviously, thrilling news, Book 4 exists, but contrary to some reporting, Book 4 has not been put into production. So the initial purpose of me wanting to do a Ramblogue on this was to clarify, because a lot of people were questioning and going, oh, wait a minute, was Book 4 not in production? And I'm like, no, wasn't in production at all. It's been produced. I think that is pretty clear, and I'll lay out the evidence for why that is now. So I'm going to take a look at Owen Dennis's and Lindsay Katai's Twitter to sort of give some evidence for why that is why that is pretty much confirmed, and then we'll have a look at the rather vague and potentially clickbaity title of whether there could theoretically be a Book 5 already produced. And I think there is a 50-50 chance of that. I'll spoil it up front, but I'll come to the evidence as to why. But yeah, so let's take a look at Owen's Twitter feed, and not to look at his rather incredible tweets regarding whether Seth Meyers is secretly ripped, because let me tell you, those things are those tweets are spectacular. Yes, I think he's right, by the way. I think Seth Meyers might be secretly ripped. I think that's very, very likely, looking at this evidence in quote marks. I mean, come on, look at those pictures. Anyway, so let's take a look first of all with an interview he did, because the first thing I want to confirm is that the show did indeed stop production last year, because that's the first piece of evidence we need to establish, right? The show hasn't been brought back. We know that. They haven't been secretly, because they would have announced that. Owen makes it very clear as well in his tweets that he would never lie about the production and stuff. So we'll come to that in a second. But let's just clarify when this production stopped. So in an interview with IO9 back in August last year, the 26th of August, with Beth Elderkin, she asked, there have been rumours of some Infinity Train's crew have been laid off. Is this true? If so, is it because of the pandemic or something else? He says, yes, the whole crew is gone. There's some production staff left, but they're transitioning onto other shows or other aspects of their career. They've all moved on because we haven't been greenlit for more. It's nothing to do with the pandemic. And then he goes on to explain that basically they functioned quite well when the pandemic first started. They didn't have any real issues with working from home, because they already had a system in place for people who wanted the option to work at home. So they sort of just were able to keep going if they'd wanted to. But the whole crew is gone now. So just some production staff left, which says to me that basically we know that it was still being animated, or the last stage of production were happening in August. Now, later on, I'll get to a tweet from Lindsay that confirms that they were all written before the pandemic. So that gives us a time frame for when the show's production wrapped up. So whatever they were writing in January, February, around that time, maybe just before Christmas, was being produced up until August last year. We now know that included season 4, book 4, I should say. He was also asked if there was a risk of the show not being renewed and what would be the next step. He says, yes, there is a risk of the show not being renewed. I mean, almost none of the staff who made the show almost all of the staff who made the show what it is are gone. It's really unfortunate, because we built such an amazing team of people, and my heart aches thinking about not being able to work with them again. Now, here's the another interesting thing. This is a an Instagram post of an Infinity Train yearbook that was given to him by a production coordinator whose name isn't on my screen, but it's probably on yours. So frustrating. What is happening with my machine? I can't get this to work. This is bad. Here we go. So this was from Brandon Faruta, who's a production coordinator of Cartoon Network, and it has the dates of 2017 to 2020. Now, the pilot came out in 2016, and it was commissioned in 2017. So looking at that, 17, 18, 19, 20, that is 4 years they were producing Infinity Train episodes. So when you hear that, is it much of a shock to think that they got 4 books done in that time? 4 years? Not really. it makes sense. In fact, we should have assumed there was more when we got 3, with those dates in mind, because that's a long time. I remember the wait for the first, because the first book didn't didn't hit our screens until 2019, I think. There's a long time that show was just in production, and just I remember every now and then checking in on our Discord, like, is that still happening? Like with some of the other people who watch a lot of animation. So it all makes a bit more sense now. So let's look at it in comparison to some of the things that have been said here. Particularly, let's take a look at Lindsay Kitai, who she's one of the lead writers on the show. This is what she said when they announced book 4. One more season of Infinity Train. Thank you for being patient while we all had to pretend it didn't exist. We finished writing it in the before times, and I'm so excited for everyone to see it. So the more confirmation this was written pre the pandemic, sort of. So I think the earliest you could call the before times is sort of January, February last year. So about a year back from where we are now. Owen tweeted, I've seen some confusion on this. The reason I never say if Infinity Train is renewed or not is because I'm not allowed to. The people that pay to make the show want to make that announcement with the biggest splash they can, not have it be an answer on some random Twitter ask. So yeah, he's just confirming what we already thought there, which is just that they can't announce it. They're not allowed to. The way it works is that marketing or PR or something figures out when's the best time to drop this information, depending on what they want to do with it. It might be an exclusive interview, it might be some big event like yesterday. This is all very normal. Let's have a look. I'm privy to very few of those plans, and the plans change constantly. So the best thing I can do is keep quiet until I'm told they need me to do, or what they need me to do, sorry. Just going rogue is kind of a dick move, so I wouldn't want to do that, even if I wasn't under NDA. It's difficult because, like, I know what's happening and how many seasons we have, but I'm not allowed to tell anyone else. So it looks like I'm just lying to everyone. This is not the case. I do not lie about the production because it affects people's actual jobs and lives. I'll lie about the stories and characters, though. That's fun for me. That fills me with joy. So, let's pass that just a little bit, because I think this is in response to when Book 4 was announced. A few people were saying, you told us all the staff had gone home. What's the deal? Are you back in production? And what he's essentially saying is, no, we already made this stuff. It was sitting there, ready to go out. We just couldn't tell you it already existed, because that's not for us to do. We didn't pay to have it made. We're not paying to have it released. That's down to the studios and the production companies and all the distribution. That's like out of our hands as creators. But what that does tell you could put, and there's 2 ways you can read this last one. It was difficult because I know what's happening and how many seasons we have, but I'm not allowed to tell anyone else. You could look at that as he's saying, I knew how many seasons we had in the can and I couldn't tell you. But the fact that we have, present tense, you could interpret that as how many seasons we have waiting to go, meaning maybe even more beyond book 5. Beyond book 4. I'm talking book 5. So, you look back at that time scale, 2017 to 2020, could you have produced 5 books in that time, 50 episodes? It's definitely possible. There are Cartoon Network shows that produce a lot more, a lot smaller time frames. So yeah, and then we had Lindsay sort of clarifying some of that by saying, hey, Infinity Train fans, what's some grist for speculation? No one has ever lied to you about our show. We admit or ignore. We're careful about wording because we're not allowed to make announcements. We also respect you. Happy passing, everyone. Which feels directly at people like me doing exactly this. So thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. I'm having a good time passing this. Thank you. I know you're already passing. I see you. Thank you. It's nice to be seen. And then she does say, actually, you know what? I am sorry to clarify. I mean, we don't lie about the show's fate. We lie about the show itself all the time. Like when we say it will make you happy or be good, or that David Diggs' character from Snowpiercer is the star of book 4, which, by the way, I hope is true. If any fans or live action TV writers really want to drive themselves insane, I will let you chew on this. A little animation studio tidbit. Infinity Train book 4 is still technically season 1 according to staff writer contracts, because that's how they be paying people. A season of a Cartoon Network show is 52 11-minute episodes, but just because we're under a contract doesn't mean they have to order the full season. It just means you have to make the full season if they want you to. So, that's big, because, well, it's not big, it's just, it gives more credence to the notion there might be more, because if the team were all let go to move on to other projects, Cartoon Network would have to release them from their contracts. Because you can't go on to another show if you know Cartoon Network might require you to complete your contract for them any day. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to go take a job over on Nickelodeon, and then 2 weeks into that job, Cartoon Network like, hey, remember the remaining 12 episodes you owe us? Come back. So you have to get permission to be essentially released from your contract to do another show. So the question becomes, and this is where, sadly, my clickbaity title is gonna let me down a little bit. If you're saying to me, Dan, is there a book 5? I say 50-50. Because the wide question of, could there be a book 5? Absolutely. They had more than enough time, I think, in that window, and Cartoon Network did have the writers contracted for up to 52 episodes. So is it possible they ordered in sets of 10 or 20, and then, at some point through some configuration of 10 and 20, because we know the first set they ordered was 20. So Owen actually said in that same IO9 interview, book 2 was actually part of the first order. They surprised us by ordering 20 instead of the 10 we asked for. So they ordered 20 of the 52 that they could contractually ask for without renegotiating. They produced those, and then clearly they were either asked for another 20 more, which is what book 3 and 4 are, and it ends there, and they released the the writers and crew with 12 episodes left on their contracts, or they ordered some other configuration of 10s and 20s until they hit the 50 number. So yeah, to come back to the overall point, I guess, could there be a book 5? Absolutely. There was more than enough time, and the writers were contracted to do up to that. So it wouldn't have cost Cartoon Network any more. Well, it would have cost them the production, but they wouldn't have had to renegotiate or anything like that to make up to book 5. Is there 50-50? Because I do think it is genuinely very possible that Cartoon Network chose to just let everyone go if they weren't sure they wanted more, especially if the show was sort of moving to HBO Max and they weren't really sure how well it was going to do over there. I could absolutely see Cartoon Network opting out of those contracts with the idea of, if we want to make more, we'll summon them back, we'll renegotiate or whatever. But I do also think that it's possible that in January last year, when they were finishing up the writing, as Lindsay said, which they finished. Well, actually, how does she phrase it? Let me just bring that one back up. She's one more season of Infinity Train. We finished writing it in before times. That is referring to book 4 specifically. Maybe it isn't though. One more season of Infinity Train. We finished writing it in before times, meaning they finished writing Infinity Train before times. She doesn't actually say book 4 in there. Okay. She was right about the passing, wasn't she? Damn it. So yeah, I think it's 50-50 because I could see both I could see both options being out there. So there is potentially a season 5 on a shelf somewhere, book 5 waiting to go in sort of 6 to 12 months once they decide to release it. And if these ones that are being released now do well enough, maybe they'll have already at that point decided to bring Owen and the guys back to start producing beyond that. Absolutely possible. I would love to see it. You would love to see it. He's always said he wanted to do 8. They had enough story for 8, and he also likes the idea of ending on 8 because 8 is essentially the infinity symbol. I would love for him to get that. We're for sure getting book 4. Very excited. I think we all should be. Make sure you all watch it on HBO Max. 5 could already be out there, so let's not be surprised again if they announce it without anyone saying that they're working on the show, because it may have been in a vault since August 2020, when the production seems to have finally wrapped up on the actual animation and stuff. I do also want to point out another tweet separate that I just found funny, which is Owen saying that to make a point about how long ago and how far ahead in production they were. Before Infinity Train was announced as greenlit, fans found my season 3 playlist and were like, there's a season 3? There's not even a season 1 yet. Owen must be messing with us. So he filled it with Limp Bizkit and Papa Roach to convince them it was fake. He said he found out in the middle of some meeting with execs and had to quickly scramble to put out the fire before anyone realised there was one. He says this really shows how long the production time is on this stuff. Season 1 wasn't even announced and we were already putting together season 3. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. Again, sorry if people feel title's clickbaity. Originally I did just want to do a video on like the fact that season 4 was already produced, because again, a lot of people were sort of like, oh, they've gone back into production. No, they haven't. The other good news, actually, I think, is that looking at the timescale, I think we could see book 4 within a month or two released, because it's already made. And last time they started promoting it and then released it really shortly thereafter. It was like, surprise, book 3's coming, and it's going to be here in about a month. So don't be surprised if book 4 drops within the next couple months. And if book 5 does exist, I would expect it to be released by the end of this year, maybe at the latest early next year. So yeah, I don't know. There's so many options, a lot going on. I've talked for too long, but that's all my evidence. I think it's absolutely certain at this point that it was long made when this started. I don't think there can be any disputing that. I guess the question just remains about book 5. But I do think there's a sort of 50-50 chance that's out there and sitting on a shelf waiting to go. Very exciting as a thought. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. Obviously, go watch the show on HBO Max if you haven't already. If you're outside of America, your options are thin. I think you can buy the seasons like via iTunes and stuff. Do just support any way you can. It's an amazing show, and I really can't wait to see more of it. But thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you guys on the next one.